Hey, my name's Bailey, and I'll be sharing with you the research that I did for my final project. I'm going to leave it in this view because I need the notes at the bottom because I stutter. My topic focuses on the oppression of women with ADHD by way of underdiagnosis, misdiagnosis, as well as societal and institutional intolerance of ADHD. So what made me decide on this topic? I myself was diagnosed with ADHD in the latter half of the writing process of this essay, but it had been long overdue. I struggled in a lot of areas of my life, and I actually had a sneaking suspicion in high school that I had it, but I was overlooked by my teachers who were really key part of diagnosis. I let it go for a while, but as I began to take college classes, I really began to notice the problems that I have with keeping my attention, being able to focus, missing little details, and those things were like bleeding into other areas of my life. This kind of kickstarted me into having a conversation about it with Miss Delvecchio actually about accommodations, and that was my first step to diagnosis. It's taken me the entirety of the semester to get through this process, and I wanted to know why such a common disorder felt so lost on the people who supported me. So naturally, I dug into the subject on my own time, and I felt a sense of injustice that kind of gave me the determination to find out as much as I could about women with ADHD. When it came time to write this final essay, I was already armed with all of this knowledge, so it was a natural choice. So we know that females are underdiagnosed a lot of the time. Why is this? The diagnostic literature for ADHD was centered around and really only studied in boys during its initial conception. This isn't uncommon. This happens with a lot of things in the medical field. Birth control, for example, they tested birth control meant for women in the bodies of men. In hindsight, that doesn't make much sense. The lack of original consideration of women in diagnosis has had an effect that has persisted until even now. The data regarding the prevalence of ADHD is dominated by boys, showing very little representation of girls, and as a result, this skews the data in favor of diagnosing boys more often. But ADHD is still ADHD. Why does gender matter? It's important to note that there are three subtypes of ADHD: hyperactive, impulsive, inattentive, and combined. Hyperactivity and impulsivity is what's most commonly associated with boys with ADHD. This is the extremely fidgety, chatty, unfocused form of ADHD that's often disruptive in school settings. Girls, however, are a lot more commonly afflicted with the inattentive form of ADHD. This presentation is extremely inward and very hard to miss if you're not looking for it. It can manifest as daydreaming, getting distracted, forgetfulness, things of that nature. Historically, ADHD is being categorized into these subtypes is pretty new. The DSM-4, the edition before the most recent DSM-5 was published in 13, was more accurate to the representation of ADHD in boys. Excuse me. So not only do women often go undiagnosed, but they're also given the wrong diagnosis. Well, what do I mean? ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that begins its onset in childhood. ADHD also has a very high comorbidity rate, which means that as a disorder, it comes with friends. In cases of women who do not have an ADHD diagnosis, diagnoses of depression and anxiety are extremely common. ADHD also shares a lot of symptoms with bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, and a bunch of other disorders. Treatment of these disorders is beneficial in most cases. The issue with treating comorbidities is that leaving ADHD out of that treatment equation often leaves those key symptoms untreated, which can cause more problems later in life. Nosology, the study of diagnosing diseases and disorders, requires a control group that lacks the symptoms of the disorder to compare with those with the disorder. This is to determine the criteria of the disorder itself. In the case of ADHD, this causes a non-ADHD ADHD binary. For the purposes of science, which is objective and pragmatic, this is necessary. But this binary falling into the hands of a subjective and biased society often becomes an abled-disabled binary. ADHD symptoms are directly related to societal values regarding labor and work. Specifically, how not good we are at it. These values like productivity, accountability, self-sufficiency, organization, and time management are all things that are diagnostically more challenging for us, making those with ADHD seem societally undesirable. This stigma is felt significantly in higher learning settings where these societal values are fundamental to the idea of success. The negative stereotypes are often what prevail in higher institutions. So the question of whether to disclose is a tough choice. For those with ADHD who opt out or opt not to out of fear of being stigmatized, they're often performatively normal, colloquially called masking. This takes a lot of mental and emotional energy and often exacerbates the issues that are trying to be disguised. This is something that most people with ADHD do without thinking. And for those who don't have a diagnosis, this may be the only option. For those who do have a diagnosis, accommodations are an option, but those who choose to use them are faced with several more challenges. Those with ADHD often struggle with the lengthy accommodation process that's filled with forms, remembering to talk to certain people, and giving those forms in at the correct time to the correct people. All of that may be a deterrent on its own, seeing how much work they have to do in so many places they could fail. If this isn't the case, though, using those accommodations may come at the expense of being the object of curiosity or even envy. The former, going to a separate setting before a test to a teacher who does not know you, may just appear as if you're leaving at an inappropriate time in which the student would be forced to clarify their accommodations and the need for their accommodations because of their disability. The thought of being outed in front of all of their peers in this manner can be enough to make them fear using this option, despite it being available to them. Additionally, some of those peers may feel a sense of unfairness, like those with ADHD are abusing their situation to get ahead, when in reality, those accommodations are in place to give everybody an equal chance of success. Lastly, those with ADHD may also suffer from dyslexia, and the format of multiple choice tests may cause errors due to the difficulty having to refocus from line to line, which can be especially troublesome if all of the test answers are similar. The extra time it takes these students to ensure that they're choosing the correct answer is time that's taken away from them to finish the entirety of the test. An unfinished test can devastate your grade, and despite it not being an accurate reflection of their intelligence and ability, multiple choice tests are often the format of choice concerning final exams, to which many instructors may be reluctant to change. So why does any of this matter? Left untreated, these comorbidities that occur with ADHD, as well as the risk-taking impulsive behaviors, can significantly reduce quality of life. It's also important to recognize that these girls don't suffer from ADHD less often, nor do they suffer from a lesser form of ADHD. These assumptions are based on being outrepresented in the data as much as 9-1. As of 2008, and over an estimated 32 million females have ADHD. And as we discussed, there are still institutional obstacles that are in the way of women who are diagnosed. If you guys enjoyed, stay safe, put on your masks, and have a safe holiday.